Hello, everybody. I was thinking about writing a blog post about my thoughts on recent events, which have huge implications to the communities that I'm involved with. I thought about writing a script. I thought about writing a draft, redrafting it, and drafting it. And so I decided that actually the only way I was going to get my thoughts out there was to just record it unscripted and pass on my message to you all regarding why I still will remain in this game and I'm not going anywhere. So I'll provide a text transcript so people can read if they want to read it on a blog. This will also go on the first episode of season 5 of the Coffee and Geography podcast. So I'll put it out there as well. So everything I'm about to say is there may be some hot takes, but I have tried to think about them deeply. They are opinion, mostly, based on my best understanding of the facts. And yeah, so take what you want out of what I'm about to say. So there's 3 things that really have really knocked me the past few weeks. So first of all, for those of you who don't know me, and most of you will, but for those of you who don't know me, I am a member of the transgender community. I'm also a member of the science communication community and educator community, particularly the geography educators community here in the United Kingdom. And there is a lot of intersection between those things. So, of course, at the time of recording, which is the middle of November 2024, there's been quite a few things that we have felt have rocked these communities. But after some reflection, I kind of realised that actually it's quite a naive way to think that these are new issues or these are shocking and surprising seismic issues. Whereas really on reflection, I feel that these are just manifestations and exposés of issues that have always been there. And perhaps people like myself and like-minded people have either chosen or maybe not chosen, unaware of the fact that we've been ignoring them or not been able to register them. And there could be many reasons to that. It could be down to the privilege that we have. So to take my privilege, for example, I'm a Westerner. I've benefited from colonial legacy. I'm educated to a degree level. I have a secure family and job and places and people who accept me for who I am and in many cases celebrate who I am. And having the privilege of knowing the work that I do, both paid and unpaid, altruistic and to put food on the table, almost 100% aligns with my values and my views of the world. So to feel that everything that's happened recently with the election in the United States, with the increasing shift to fascism and appeasement to the right wing and populism and ideology has felt hard. It's felt scary. It's felt frightening. But it's not come out of the blue. It's been there. It's now found something to hold on to. It's found something to manifest its around, something to coalesce around, so it becomes more visible. So I'm going to take a few things which are really bothering me, and I just want to set out where I feel and why we should all. Now's the time for us to really make sure that we work towards the way we want the world to be. But there you go again. There's the privilege in it. The way we want the world to be. I think it's more accurate to say to work towards the way the world should be fairly and justly for everybody. And that includes the people whose worldviews don't align with us. So the first thing I will address is the re-election of Trump. I be honest, my family is half American. In fact, if by number, extended family, there's more American members of my family than there are any other nationality. My wife is American. My children are half American. So of course, we were very invested in the politics of the United States. Probably unsurprisingly, they, or at least to my knowledge, they were Kamala Harris voters, whether by to do that because they align with her policies or her politics, or because maybe they are will never vote for Trump and want him out. And even those members of my family who had valid and strong arguments for saying, well, I can't vote for either of them because the system, right, and it's broken, even they have gone ahead and tried to do their best to kind of keep a documented fascist and bigot and convicted felon out of the Oval Office. So two things that trouble me with regards to his re-election. I mean, I'm not going to go through specific details because I would advise you all to kind of like do your own research and listen to that. I would strongly recommend, this video is not sponsored by anybody, but I'd strongly recommend independent news sources and news sources which evaluate the bias and factuality of other news sources. So, for example, Ground News is a really good one. So, I would urge you to get your news about them, about Trump appointees, his potential policies, Project 2025, all that kind of stuff. So, as a transgender science communicator who works in the science industry, particularly climate science, it was pretty devastating. The attacks on my community, the transgender community, and why wider the LGBTQIA plus community, is been well documented by people like Erin Reed, for example, and definitely look her up on social media. She's a fantastic trans journalist and covers these issues exceptionally well. So I won't rub on her patch because she does a great enough job as it is. But already before the likes of Trump and even now we have a so-called Labour, so-called centre or centre-left government, there's still this misconception that the existence of folks like me are an ideology, whereas actually our existence is reality and based on sound history, sound science, sound sociology, pre-colonial evidence, and indigenous cultures, we're there. And yet we're told that we're an ideology, something to be stamped out, that we're a rash, that we're a contagion. And some of the main political appointees that Trump are going to have are folks who deny our existence and think that vaccines or 5G, I mean, not all of them, but that make kids trans, or teachers are trying to make kids trans or something like that. Now, it might be sounding like I'm getting a bit self-righteous and focusing on myself and my community here, but I think what is happening to the trans community and the very now real, especially in the United States, possibility of systemic and institutional and, effectively genocide. I do use that term appropriately, in my opinion. Again, look at the works of people like Erin Reed. Is a very, very real thing now in the United States. And even now there are places in the United States where I can't visit safely. And that's increasingly going to be the case. So even someone with my high level of privilege is having impact here. So heaven knows how people with less privilege with me, and especially trans people are less privileged with me, black trans people, for example, they're going to cope. But the message I'm going to give to anybody in the trans community is that I'm not going away. Am I going to shut up shop and look after myself? Am I going to stop traveling to see my family at the United States? Am I going to stop doing science communication? Am I going to stop putting my face out there, my name out there in the, doing what I do for climate justice, social justice, decolonizing work, science communication? Am I going to stop that? Am I going to stop doing my podcast? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. As a matter of fact, what's happening right now has made me more determined to be visible for those who can't. And I'm increasingly understanding that up to this earthquake, if you like, political earthquake, ideological earthquake, fascist earthquake, whatever you want to call it, even though it's been there, I've now left the site previously known as Twitter, because you could see people being emboldened to actually really give their points of view. And just, I told you this was unscripted. Just this morning, I went to my youngest's year assembly, where they give out all the kind of things what they've been learning about in the year so far. And as these parents were approaching and they saw there was a spare seat about me, one of them looked to me and then said, "Oh, I'm going to go sit next to a lady," and then passed them with the row that I was in by with the missing seats and sat behind me. So these folks have already had these attitudes. It's just now they're being emboldened to not just be more vocal on them, and increasingly not anonymous either, because of the empowerment they have in people in power to vocalize these things and vote for these things. But it's increasing, and I'm seeing an increase in folks comment on the work that I do, or question the work that I do, even though the vast majority of work I do is based on scientific fact and established scientific processes. Questioning it because I must not know what I'm talking about because I've got pronouns in my bio, or because I'm trans, or because I'm part of a wider conspiracy or ideology where there was one person who said because that, this whole massive conspiracy with big pharma, trans people and scientists to control and bring a new world order, and I'm the embodiment of those things. So yeah, I could shrink and protect myself, protect my family, take the heat away for a bit, but I ain't going anywhere. I try my very, very best to pass my privilege forward, to use my voice. The best thing I can think of, and if you are capable of doing this, and you're in marginalised communities of any kind, is please stick around. Do your best to not just survive, but be proud and thrive of who you are, which is why events like Pride and Black History Month, all that kind of stuff, matter. They really matter. And why the detractors say, "Oh, here they go shoving." They get a whole month shoving it down our throats. The reason why they don't like it is because it's a monthly reminder, or whatever it is, that we exist, right? And if you feel you can't be safe being visible, or you've got to go stealth, or you've got a code switch, then I hope that my presence and me continuing to do what I do can give you hope that we're not going anywhere and we still exist. And we can exist in spaces that really matter. I really, really love my job. I really feel I'm making a difference. And I have so many great colleagues and enablers and partners that I work with in my job, both as a communicator, as an educator, and also in my day job. That gives me hope. Yes, it keeps me in echo chambers and bubbles, perhaps, but at least what I know is for the benefit of everybody, and whether some people don't realise that. So that brings me on to science. So at the moment of time recording, we're at COP29, and we have so that in Azerbaijan, where the next load of flawed climate negotiations taking place. And I swear, my personal opinion, I said this to comment to friend Chris Jackson. I said I swear that half the oil and gas deals are done at COPs. They are very flawed systems. They are, if they worked, it wouldn't be at COP29. So of course, with the election of Trump and the United States being such a huge player when it comes to climate change and climate negotiations, we've already had politicians around the world, including here in the United Kingdom, I wouldn't, probably be unfair to me to say open their arms, right? But make statements that, no matter who is the leader of the most powerful country in the world, we've got to work with them. In other words, forget who he is, forget what he stands for, forget the kind of terrible damage that he can do to people, science, health, whatever it is. We've still got to cuddle up to them, right? So it's like a domino effect. And that's really, really bad news for science communicators like me, and scientists who are doing the research, because increasingly there is not just climate change denial, which has been around for a long time, but there is science denial. There's even prominent science communicators on places like YouTube, and I'll put a few links down in the description for some really good commentary on this kind of stuff. Actually getting climate science deniers watch their videos because it's affirming their stance. So people who are disgruntled with academia or disgruntled with science process, and they're really, really using terms like science is failing, or why you shouldn't trust scientists, or something like that. People who are in the industry, So when you've got someone in a major power who's putting science deniers, anti-science, anti-vaxxers, climate, all that kind of stuff in positions of power, that will have a knock-on effect globally. And so science communicators and educators like me have got a really important role to play. And not just in the next 4 years, but increasingly we need to be emboldened, and we need to be steadfast in the work that we do. We are going to come under attack in an unprecedented fashion. And if we really think about it, we have been for a while now. During the Brexit debate, all of the analysis, social analysis, economic analysis, science, all of that was swiped away by one comment from Michael Gove at the time. People are fed up listening to the experts. That to me was a signal that, hang on a minute, there's a lot of people out there that don't trust us, and he wouldn't have used that soundbite unless it was catching somehow. And of course, we had COVID, and which really tested the scientific method, really tested scientific communication, because it's impossible for science to get things 100% accurate. It doesn't work that way. That's why there's uncertainty and confidence levels in science, right? So any tiny little mistake that someone makes when it comes to the spread of disease, which can kill people, it gets jumped on and amplified. So not just climate science, but any science is going to be under increasing scrutiny, and it's also going to have the backing of people who don't like it, who are ideologically opposed to what that science is trying to discover and understand. Which is why climate science is so controversial. Climate science itself, and the process of understanding how our world responds to climate and how that influences extreme weather and patterns like that, and then the increasing body of evidence and increasing field of research looking into the social aspects of stuff, the colonial aspects of stuff, the systemic issues of climate change. None of that is controversial. None of that is controversial. It's the folks where the results and the findings and the increased understanding of those things is ideologically opposing these people's worldviews and their values. That's what makes it a controversial issue. So what I'm now saying to folks in science communication and educators, and I include teachers in this, is stand your ground. Don't give any ground, any leeway or pander to these people who want to discredit us because they don't like what we're saying. Do I like communicating the impacts of climate change? Do I like going into a school or setting which have high vulnerability to heat and flooding and tell them basically how crap it's going to get? Do I enjoy bringing that news? Communicating the fact that we're almost certainly likely to miss our 1.5 degree target? No, I don't like that. It doesn't bring me joy. But it's the right thing to do, regardless of how much it upsets people. It's my responsibility as a science communicator to make sure I communicate that in a way that's still got a hopeful tone, because I still have hope, which I'll come to in a minute. It's my responsibility to make sure I don't increase climate anxiety or eco-anxiety, but instead the knowledge that I impart makes people more empowered, because I can then give examples. But hang on a minute, this is what we can do about it, and this is what the science does also say of why there is hope. So we've all got look, you're an amazing bunch, science communicators. You do a tough job. You do an amazing job. We are on the front line between members of the public who want to know more but maybe don't understand it, or those who don't want to know and fight it because of values and ideology, and those who quite outright feel, they're riding the Dunning-Kruger at the start. So we've got to stand our ground. Don't pander to those who want to discredit the work that we do. Stand your ground. Stick to using those authoritative sources. Check your sources. Check with people who are on the front line with these things to see that you've got things right, or you need to make a mistake. Make a mistake, issue an addendum, issue an erratum, issue a correction. Be human. Be honest. And that leads me into the last thing what I want to say is be hopeful. Somebody I strongly recommend you follow on Blue Sky on social media is climate researcher David Ho. He made a fantastic point, which I totally subscribe to, and I've always subscribed to, and people have listened to my talks and stuff like that know I subscribe to this. Is that he said, look, yeah, okay, 1.5 degrees, that Paris Agreement, what we've considered, this arbitrary number. Well, it's not really arbitrary, but we've given it 1.5 is a lot more easy to sell soundbite stuff like that. But that's what the science and the data coalesces around to what people believe is safe climate change. Past that, we start getting to real issues. There are issues at the moment. See, probably me displaying my privilege again. I already know that current climate change is having excruciating impacts on people right now less privileged than me. So I'll own that one that I just said. But anyway, 1.5 degrees is what has been this benchmark term, right? It's almost certain we're going to miss that. So now the talk is on 2 degrees. We can still avoid 2 degrees of warming by the end of the century compared to pre-industrial times. But David made a fantastic point. He said 1.5 has most likely gone. Not impossible to stay under, but it's most likely gone. But 1.51 is still to play for. 1.52 is still to play for. 1.53 is still to play for. And every increment of global warming is still a target. So try not to get wrapped up too much in, we failed 1.5, so now we are definitely going to get 2 and we need to stay below 2. And the possibility is, we failed 2, then it's 3. You notice then it goes from a 0.5 of an increase from 1.5 to 2, then a 3, then a 4, and then quite often you don't usually see 5, sometimes you do, but then it goes 6. So can you see we're ever increasing race to the bottom and doomism with regards to these benchmarks? It doesn't matter. These are just numbers. They're integers, right? Every action matters. It really does. Now, we are being failed by the people at the top down. And yes, They are people in power, people in government, people who emit individually the ultra high net worth individuals who produce the most carbon emissions. There is very little we can do personally regarding those people and the actions that they take on a massive scale. Granted. Granted. But there is so much that we can do collectively which can mean the difference between an extra 0.1 of a degrees warming or an extra 0.2 of a degrees warming. And every warming we prevent saves thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives. It doesn't just save lives, but it safeguards their well-being as well. So do not give up. Keep doing things from the bottom up. I'm seeing amazing things at community level, parish level, schools that are doing. You're a teacher and you're thinking, what's the point now? I just want to focus on my lesson planning and marking. I get it. I'm an ex-teacher. Don't give up. Don't give up. Remember why we're in this job to do is to make our young people and members of the public's lives better. And we can still do things from the middle outwards. So if you're an organisational leader, if you're a charity, if you're a local government, there is still so much that you can do. And then the more that gets done from the bottom up, the more it influences policy and the more trajectory goes towards things from the middle outwards. And all of a sudden, a good example is the economics of renewable energy. As soon as you get a trigger point, all of a sudden, there's no stopping it. So things like that. If you're thinking about Trump and things like that, he ain't going to stop a renewable energy wave around the world because economics won't allow it. So there are things there to still hope on. I'm not an economics expert, but that's how I read it anyway. So if you're feeling a bit depressed at the moment, please know that that's normal. About politics, the rise of fascism, this tendency to always lurch to the right when things like this happen. And yes, it stings to know that there are people in our communities, in our families, who will vote for a fascist and a felon regardless, because small things like the price of petrol matters to them. And you can't, and if they're struggling to make ends meet and they have to drive, you can understand the validity of their opinion. We have to acknowledge that. But it doesn't make the work that we do or the existence of our communities any less valid. Now is the time for us to double down on the work that we do. Now is the time to try and those people who there is a glimmer of bringing them either back to understanding the way the world really works and who's really in the world, is to bring them back on board. Reach out for those people who do genuinely want to do the right thing. There are going to be plenty of people who will follow ideology or will stay set in their own values. And for the vast majority of them, there's probably legitimate, valid reasons why they feel that way. So we've just got to do what we've got to do and stay true to ourselves. Right, that's been about 30 minutes now. Thank you if you've got all the way to the end of this. Thank you very much for listening and indulging me. Please bear in mind, as I said at the start, this is my emotions laid bare, opinions based on what I know. There will be things that you probably don't agree with. That's fine. You know me, I'm always up for a friendly intellectual debate in good faith. But if you're just here to dismiss me outright and by extension my communities, both the LGBTQI community and the science community and the educator community, if you think I'm part of a major conspiracy, you can go sod off, because I ain't going anywhere, and you can stay angry. But I'd appeal to you to reflect on what the real reason why you're angry at someone like me, or you don't believe in someone like me, or my community or the people I work with, what really is driving that anger? Really think about it. It's the only thing I can ask of you. It's the only thing I can ask of you. Thanks everybody for listening. You'll now find me on Blue Sky and not so much, but on Mastodon as well. And then I'll still be posting on my Jog Ramblings Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. There'll more be automated stuff relating to my work and whatnot. But you can always find me at jogramblings.com. And of course, the Coffee and Geography podcast, which you can search for on any platform. I still have faith in myself. I still have faith in all of us. And believe it or not, even though it doesn't feel like it at the moment, the evidence suggests I still have faith in humanity. Let's cling on to that.